And a pleasant good evening to you. Welcome to the Author Showcase. I'm Keith Williams, your host. And this is the podcast where we show some love to our authors who want, who are published authors. They have written a book and they are looking to get promoted. And we normally do this through interviews. We have people to talk about their books. Also, too, we often have bloggers and publishers that come on the show as well to kind of give us some pointers on, how to write a book, how to get it printed, how to get distributed, the whole 9 yards. So if you are a publisher, this podcast is for you as well. If you are a blogger or if you like to do video blog, so you do a lot of talking instead of typing, uh, this is the place for you as well. So this evening in this segment, we have D. Neil Elliot, another great publisher, publishing book author rather, with us. Good evening.
Hi, how you doing? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Pretty good. I almost got tongue tied on my words, but nevertheless, um, you can start off by telling everyone who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first we'll start with the D as the initial to my first name, and it's really to differentiate me as a author and on the internet. I go by Neil, so please call me Neil.
Okay.
Uh, all right. So I'm born 1960, so currently 62 years old, and a professional engineer with a master's of business administration, and I've worked in the professional world in the hydroelectric industry really for 34 years, and that's what I've done professionally. Um, lived in Canada my entire life, born in Canada, lived in Canada, but I've traveled the world. And I do have 5 grandchildren, and they are all Texans. So we go down to Texas and visit them every now and then. Uh, you know, I I wrote my book. My book is really about my spiritual journey, and really, it's a roadmap. It's a roadmap for others to consider that would like, maybe unhappy with some aspect of their life that would like to change their life. And the reason I wrote it is in 2015, I had slowly driven myself into this really deep and dark, despondent depression that ended up in 2017 after I went through a process of trying to change how I was thinking. Um, to me sitting down at a our house had sold, so we were renting a little one-bedroom apartment in the city. And I sat down at the kitchen table. My wife had gone to visit family and friends in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. No one knew I was in this deep dark spot. My wife didn't know, my family didn't know. And I planned out my suicide and crafted my suicide note. And about a week prior to doing that, some information fortuitously came to me that promised to liberate me if I studied it and I followed it. So I thought, well, uh, you know, I, I was so done with life at this point. It seemed like everything I had, what didn't matter how much money I made or how successful I was in business. I just, I was just done with it. It seemed to be just a misery. And but I was looking for any sliver of hope to kind of keep going. So I thought I'll study this information. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, well, you can always pull the trigger. And what I did was I dove into this. I pushed out the date of my suicide. I was planning it out about 3 months to ensure my wife and family would be okay financially and to get rid of all that stuff we accumulate over a lifetime that clogs up closets and attics, basements and stuff, and that no one needs to deal with after someone passes on. And I studied this. And a year later, my depression was totally gone. I was just full of inner peace and love and joy. And then a bunch of really what I would almost call magical things happened after that. We can talk about that. But it it I just felt I wanted to share my story in the process I followed because I believe that there will be other people out there that, are perhaps in a state where they could really use something to help them come to this complete inner peace and love and joy, regardless of where they live or what their external circumstances are.
So you pretty much mentioned you probably end up giving the audience a synopsis of what the book The Higher Road, is. So you've already answered that question. Um, but I have a couple of follow-up questions regarding this book. Now, what are some of the key concepts, in this book, and can anyone apply them to their lives at any stage?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Let's deal with, can anyone apply them at any stage? The simple answer to that is yes. There is a requirement, and the requirement is simple. You have to be open and willing to learn some new information and follow a process. And if you're open to that, to learning something new, you don't have to, if you read it, you don't agree with my book, or it doesn't resonate with you, that's not a problem. I'm not trying to push this onto anybody, but I'll tell you, if you are open to it and you're willing to explore some new stuff, this book is really a roadmap, and I give you all of the information I used and all of the tools I used to take me through this process. So, what are the key concepts? Well, let me tell you about the structure of the book, and then I'll tell you the key concepts. So, the structure is, it's in 5 parts. The first part is an overview of what you're going to learn. The second part is a really candid memoir, and I'm a very private person, but I felt it was important to be candid with this memoir to demonstrate how I created every event and every experience that manifested in my life. Both those things I really loved and wanted to experience, but also those things that I just merely endured or downright, hated, for lack of a better word. And the third part of my book is really a chapter in consciousness, and it's designed to bring everybody along, to get everybody on the same page, to and to explain how these patterns of thinking and feeling that we program in our subconscious mind and we believe is our truth, um, how those things create every event and every experience that comes into our life. So it's really about consciousness, this whole chapter, or this whole part of the book. And then the fourth part of the book, I share these, I call them truths. This gives some insights and some examples of this information I use that enabled me to uh, change my consciousness, to have a new perspective of life. And then the last part of the book is really, uh, the my personal experiences. I went through these 7 steps that I offer in a higher road for anybody to consider. And so, what are the key concepts? The key concepts, your state of consciousness is the most important consideration in your life. And in order to understand that sentence, you need to understand what consciousness is. And the book takes you through this in part 3 of the book, gives you a new understanding, or a new understanding for me anyway, it might not be for the reader, of what consciousness really is. And when you understand that everything that you think is right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, is really just a belief, and that this thinking that you have can affect your biology and affect your brain, and can draw to you illness and sickness, or promote the well being of your health. When you understand this, and you understand that everything that you think is right, or that is right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, is really just a belief, then what I do is I give you a tool to be able to undo your thinking, to cleanse your consciousness of all of these concepts that are drawing illness into your life, or misery, or unhappiness, or depression, or anything that you do not enjoy, that are bringing all of these things into your life, and then rebuild it into a way that will bring love and peace and joy and prosperity and abundance into your life. And then the rest of the book, as I said, I've shared some concepts on that. So of this process. But really, what I'm doing is I'm giving you a roadmap, and I'm giving the reader a roadmap, and the reader all of the tools they need to transform their life.
I mean, you mentioned something about 7 steps in your book. So without giving the whole thing away, uh, can you just list what those 7 steps are? I mean, you don't have to explain it. I want people to, actually read the book, but you just give us a walkthrough of what those 7 steps are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, step one is really it is a step I call stretching your consciousness, and it's really to give the reader a new concept of what consciousness is. So, for example, I used to think that everything that I thought was something that I had been exposed to, or learned in school, or experienced in my life, or gained as was growing up, and growing up from babyhood to adulthood. And so I thought that these thoughts that I cobble together and put into sentences, I thought were all in my brain. I've come to understand. I take people through this process, but I take people through this process to understand that everything that you think is really kind of things that you've programmed in your subconscious mind, that you take as your truth as you're very young, and you're growing up from babyhood to adulthood. And you take these things as truths and absolutes, and we program our subconscious mind, and we believe it in our conscious mind. And then this is what dictates how we view the world and how we view everything around us. And so the first step really is stretching your consciousness to give you a new understanding of what consciousness is. The second step is I unveil these truths. So I call it truths unveiled. And what I do is I share some of the material that I received to give you an understanding, if you follow these 7 steps, of what this material is like, and how it's written, and how easy it is to understand, and how logical and rational it is. And this material will bridge the gap between reality, or spirituality, and our human and science, what we know in science today. Step three is really a reflection step, and it's a step that's important. You're going to go through this step. You're going to reflect on your life. You're going to document it. You're going to be given some instructions. And this documentation is really a benchmark of where you are. And it's not for you to share with your spouse, or your family, or your friends, or it's not to please a God anywhere. It is strictly for you. And you're going to document this, and you're going to seal it in an envelope. And if you follow these 7 steps, you'll open it a year later. And really, it's a benchmark for you to be able to measure how much you have changed, and how much your perspective of life has changed over the course of the year, if you follow these 7 steps. Step four is this process of this inner cleansing of your consciousness, of your current thinking and your current concepts. And step five is a rebuilding of your consciousness to be in alignment with where we come from, and to where we return after death. And to build it in a way which is congruent with where we come from and to where we return. And when you do that, then what you do is you start bringing in peace and joy and love and abundance into your life, no matter where you are, whether you're living on the street, in the back streets of a slum, or whether you're living in a mansion. I tell you that this works, and it's a direct and it's a fast method to do it, relatively speaking to other methods of achieving the same level of awareness. And step six is you're going to learn a meditation. And I know some people may not meditate daily. I certainly didn't. I did it as kind of an ad hoc thing. I tried it for a while and gave up on it. And I didn't really understand what meditation was for. I heard all these great things of, it lowers blood pressure and lowers anxiety and, all these things that it's good for. But I can tell you that the real purpose of meditation is to enable you to enter into the silence and the stillness of your mind so that you can make a connection with source. Whether you want to call that God or Yahweh or the Tao or Allah, doesn't matter. You make this connection with our creator to allow it to enter into you and make itself known to you, and then to help you through this process of this inner cleansing and rebuilding of your consciousness. And I meditate every day. You can start with 10 minutes and build up to whatever you want, but I meditate every morning without fail. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I meditate between 90 minutes and 2 hours every day. And it is the most joyous and peaceful and wonderful time of my life when I'm meditating, because you get into this state of just absolute silence and stillness. You stop all thoughts and you make this connection. You feel the spiritual inflow of energy, and as it is helping you go through this process of inner cleansing and rebuilding. And step seven is really a rinse and repeat process. It's a process where you're going to go back and you're going to repeat some of these things, because none of this happens quickly. None of this happens, like a fast food order. It really is this slow and imperceptible process. These changes happen very slowly. But I can tell you, if you stick with the process and you just follow it and you continue to learn this new knowledge that I offer people to learn, you will totally change your perspective in life, and you will totally transform your life from wherever you're at.
In your
It really
book,
is.
uh, in your book, you mentioned that regardless of your current situation or challenges, whether you are poor, wealthy, ill, happy, healthy, or depressed, you can find a path to a brighter, fulfilling future. How much time does it normally take for someone to go over the 7 steps you just mentioned? And does that change from person to person?
Well, I think I can tell you how long it took me, and I suspect, excuse me, I suspect it will vary per person, because that's going to depend on where they're starting in this process, and how much time they want to dedicate to this. So it took me a year, from November 2017 to November 2018. And so 12 months and 13 months. So that I went from being deeply depressed on the brink of suicide, planning my suicide note, to a year later, just waking up and realizing like my depression was totally gone, and how I viewed the world and how I interacted with people, and what I thought of people totally had transformed. What I thought of my external circumstances totally transformed, even though nothing changed in my environment, from a physical perspective. But physical, I mean, like, house I lived in, those kinds of things. But at the 13th month, at the end of December 2018, so that's 13 months after I began this process, I went into these two meditations back to back, 2 days apart. And I went into this meditation, and very quickly, you go through these increased levels of vibrational frequency of consciousness when you get into these meditations. and went into this meditation, very quickly rose through different varying levels of frequency of consciousness. And then the spiritual energy flowed in through my head and it filled my body. And then it all of a sudden, it totally enveloped me in unconditional love. And it was an unconditional love that was, like we don't even have the human language to describe it. It just filled me with this, no, I felt non-judged for anything I'd done in my life. I didn't care what anybody had done to me in the past, what anybody had said to me, that I would have previously considered to be quite negative or judgmental or critical. I didn't care, kind of what I had done in my life. I just felt totally judged, non-judged, and supported, and just cradled in this unconditional love. And I didn't care what aches and pains my body had or what illnesses it had. I just it was just so amazing, and it's just so hard to describe. And I came out of that meditation. I just wanted to stay there forever. I came out of that meditation, and then 2 days later, I had the exact same meditation. And I knew then at that point that this new knowledge I gained and this process I followed is our truth. And that if anybody is willing and open and able to follow this process and be be open and curious like a little child to learn this new knowledge without any prejudgment or preconceived notions of what you're going to learn, and just be open to it, that it just slowly penetrates your whole being and changes how you think. And I can tell you, it is, for lack of a better word, it's such a magical process and such a magical outcome. And it's just been ever evolving and ever more beautiful since 2018, end of 2018.
If you could list one takeaway from your book, what would it be?
You know, there's so many. One takeaway. I think the most important thing is that, we come from unconditional love and we return to unconditional love. And we are born here to individualize, to go through this evolutionary process of the soul to come back to our truth. And our truth is unconditional love. And when you follow a process like this and you become this embodiment of unconditional love, then what you do is you view the world and circumstances through an entirely new lens. You realize that everybody's soul is perfect. Everybody's soul is unconditional love, and their soul is equal to your soul. And anything that they're doing that may be considered reprehensible or horrible or uh, bad for other people is really just a manifestation of these um, events and experiences that will rebound to them to teach them the lessons that their soul wants to learn. And when they finally learn these lessons, and they learn that they're they are not victims of fate. You are not victims of fate. You are victims of your own creative consciousness. And everything that you experience is a result of your thinking and feeling. You think with electrical impulses in the brain, you feel with magnetic impulses in the nervous system. Your thinking is this consciousness plan, and you're in these magnetic impulses of feeling magnetize that consciousness plan to draw energy particles together to create these like events and like experiences that come into your life. When you understand these processes and you understand where we come from and to where we return, you can make a conscious choice of following a path like this, following this path or another, that brings you to this state of being congruent with where you come from and where you return. And that is what we were meant to do. We were meant to go through this evolutionary process of the soul to evolve to this place where we are open and purified channels of the divine, to allow the divine to express itself through us. And that expression is unconditional love, no matter what anybody is doing. It is unconditional love with the goal to permeate and be examples to those people that are doing reprehensible things, to help them wake up and come back to the state of absolute utter love and peace and joy. And when we all do this, we'll bring this world into this new era of love and peace.
To an outsider, you had an amazing life, a successful career, an amazing family. But at the age of 57, you hit rock bottom, feeling depressed, anxious, and trapped. What happened when you realized that you was in a dark place?
I just I so that was in 2015. I realized I was there, and I didn't want to let anybody know I was there. We all wear this facade, and we can project whatever we want into our environment. So that my family and friends didn't know I was there. So I picked up some science books, and I picked up some newly issued spiritual books, and I started to go through this process of trying to figure out, how can I come out of this state that I'm in, this mental state I'm in, of this depression and dark, and how I viewed the world. And I learned a bunch of great things. And really, what was going on was, I say this in retrospect now, the material I learned didn't itself make this shift in me and this change in me and allow me to follow this process. But what it was doing is it was opening me up and laying this foundation for me to receive this new information that came to me in late 2017. And it was getting me to a place where I was open and I was curious and I wasn't judgmental about anything. I was looking for something that was rational, logical, made sense to my mind, that I could understand and then bridge this gap for me to between spirituality and science that enabled me to follow this process of this new information that came to me.
And you done all this without going to therapy or talking to a counselor or even going to a psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's correct. No drugs, no psychiatrist, no counseling.
Wow, talk about saving hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they're bad things. I'm just saying, for me, this what made just it was so logical and rational and made so much sense that, and it talks about things, like, if you follow these 7 steps, you're going to understand things that, current I believe that current psychologists and psychiatrists, etc., don't themselves understand. And when you do that, that you have to, this is an experiential thing. So this is, being an engineer, I need to, engineers, like other scientists, like, we need to be able to calculate things and measure things and observe things and repeat, like with science experiments and stuff, for it to make sense to, most of us that are in this kind of professional world. And those, there's certain laws of the universe that we know, from our science and things, and we know things in science today that, you know wasn't known 100 years ago, 200 years ago. For example, uh we know that at a subatomic level, everything is really just energy. There's nothing solid. Like, you look at your body, you look at objects, your computer, your table, or your desk, or whatever around you, and they appear solid and they look solid, and we knock on them. And if you stepped in front of a bus, yes, you're going to get hurt or killed. But In reality, at a subatomic level, there's more space in our bodies and in a table or a piece of metal than there is anything that's solid. And so we know that the universe is really comprised of energy. And quantum physics will talk about this duality, if you will, of light being both a wave and a particle. And so you will learn by following these 7 steps. You're going to learn what was before the Big Bang, what happened at the time of the Big Bang, how the material universe came about, and how we use the tools of the universe, the law of cause and effect, and we use the tool of electromagnetism to create everything and every event that comes into our life. And it's these same tools, like the ego is a tool of the divine to create the unity, to create individuality out of the unity and the wholeness of the divine. And I take people through this process in this chapter on consciousness to get everybody to the state that I got to through reading these science books and these other spiritual books. And I share information with people that will get them to a place, if they're open and willing, where they will get this stretched understanding of what consciousness really is. And this is the kind of the first one of the first aspects that you're gonna you need to do when you follow this process is be open, be curious, and even though you might not understand it, it is presented in a way which I believe is so logical and rational that at least it will, if nothing else, it will make you go, this is a possibility. And if you can be open to it and say that, okay, this is a possibility, and then complete these 7 steps by following these, doing this other process, you will gain so much insight and so much knowledge about how and why we're here and why we're created like we are, and that we're co-creators of our own reality through our thinking and our feeling, and then how we do this co-creation. And when you understand that, you will understand the kinds of thinking and feeling that you are, that bring these things to you that are negative, that are painful, that are hurtful, that are disease inducing or harmful. And we feel like victims, and we get caught in these patterns of thinking and feelings of victimhood. And what we really need to do is, when you come back to your truth and you understand it, it becomes this experiential thing. It's not an intellectual thing. You need to learn some new knowledge. Really, what you do need to do is need to learn this meditation and then follow this process. And it's slowly, what happens is your entire consciousness gets, you begin this process of cleansing and rebuilding, and you come back into alignment and congruency with where we come from and to where we return. And when you do that, then your life starts to change. And it changes before your eyes, and it changes slowly, but you will wake up one day and you'll go, I am totally different than I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I look back now because, like I said, I started this in November 2017. So call it December 2018. So we got 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm coming up on 4 full years. And I can tell you the person I was 5 years ago is nothing like the person I am today. Does that mean I'm perfect? No, in no ways. I still have a long ways to go, and I'm still a work in progress. But I do it with joy and love and peace, and I feel totally secure no matter what's going on in the world around me. I'm not concerned about any of it. I feel for all of the things and all of the things that people are subject to, and this these events that are going on in the world, which are so harmful to other people, and what we've done to this beautiful planet. We have raped and pillaged this beautiful planet, and we need to wake up, and we need to start treating this planet with love and respect. And we need to start treating everybody around us with love and respect, and looking out for the best for everyone and sharing and being supportive and not being greedy and get away from this individuality. We are a collective. We are a whole. We are supposed to operate with love and peace in our hearts and generosity of spirit and generosity of material things if we have them.
Looks like you already shared with the audience the knowledge you have gained in the process that you use on your own journey of self-awareness. Now, if someone who is facing a challenge or a difficult moment in their life, um, is it possible for them to, is it possible for them to have a new perspective about their life? If, for example, if, they may decide that they want to purchase their book or they want to go through some of the processes that you have been through. Uh, would that something that will work for everyone, or is it a certain amount of people? Can anyone take advantage of that?
Well, okay, so I believe, okay, there's many paths to the top of the mountain. So I believe that this can work for anybody, but the method that I'm sharing and the process I'm sharing may not resonate with some people. They may need to find a different path, but you will never know unless you actually read and understand and give yourself the opportunity. So whether it's, A Higher Road, my book, that is your first book you pick up, or it's some other book by some other spiritual teacher or a religious teacher if you're on that path. I grew up agnostic. I'd say my mother was kind of atheist, so I don't have a lot of training or knowledge of the various religions in the world. I have a smattering because of course we all do as we grow up, but I think that the big thing is whether you are following a religion or not. A message that I will give, and it may not resonate with everybody, is there's no God on high that's judging you. You are loved unconditionally, and there's no punishment after death. The pain and the misery that you experience here is self-induced, and the pain and the misery that you experience here, our Creator doesn't even understand what that pain and misery is because our Creator is unconditional love and radiates unconditional love to you unstintingly. And in order for you to experience it, is so our Creator's consciousness is so spiritually refined and such a high vibrational frequency that it cannot enter into you and make itself known to you until you start to raise your vibrational frequency of your human consciousness. And when you do that, you'll have a meeting. You'll get to a point where you'll feel this spiritual inflow of energy. And when you do, that is the beginning of this. That is the beginning of you understanding that this process is happening. But when you follow this process that I have outlined in A Higher Road, these things will be happening imperceptibly to you. But if you're following this process, that spiritual inflow of energy will be coming into you. It's just that you won't be able to feel it. But these changes happen so slowly and so imperceptibly. And then one day you'll feel it. And when you feel it, then it will just, if you continue with the process, it just keeps getting stronger and you become more aware of it. And then at some point you will have an understanding that I gained, which is this process is our truth. This process brings us back to where we're supposed to be. This process enables us to be, kind of these open. It takes a long time to get open and purified, and it might not happen in one life, but you're on the path then to become this open and purified channel of our creator, of the divine, if you will. And when you do, you'll become this embodiment of unconditional love, and you will express unconditional love to everything and everyone in your environment. So, yes, I believe this can help anybody and everybody, but some people will read this and it may not resonate with them, and that's okay. You know, continue looking, continue searching, and continue to be open, and be open like a curious little child, full of wonder and joy.
How do we create for ourselves the best possible outcomes for our lives? And how do we outline and achieve life's purposes, heal the body and mind, and draw happiness into life?
You know, you have to, you have to gain an understanding, or at least I believe you do. You have to gain an understanding of what our reality is. See, so, you know, we grow, you know, we're born. And so at the time of conception of sperm and ovum, the little I mind of ego is created. And the soul infuses past life and lessons, etc., into this process of fertilization. And the little I mind of ego starts to take control to help build the body through these materialized form of cell division, etc., utilizing this life force energy that comes from our creator. And and so then the baby is born, and the baby is really this embodiment of unconditional love, especially if it's been born into a family that can you know, feed it and diaper it and change its clothes and keep it bathed and happy and you know, kind of loved. And children, their brains don't develop to make their own choices in life. Like, you can't make your own choice until your brain develops to a certain level, and that's around age 5. So from babyhood to about age 5, this little embodiment of joy is really every baby is just absorbing everything that's in their environment. So they're absorbing their types of language their family uses, whether it's you know, denigrating and judgmental, or whether it's loving and kind, or everything in between. They're absorbing, you know, whether that family is religious, what their traditions are, the kind of emotions that are around it. So there are these little sponges that's absorbing these things, and what that's doing is that's starting to shape and hone and hue your personality, and it's being embedded in your subconscious mind. And then at age 5, you know, your brain's developed to a point where you start to make decisions for yourself, but it's now colored by what you've absorbed up to age 5. And then from age 5, you know, to adulthood, you know, you go to school, you learn from other people, you have all these other experiences, and what you're doing is you're reinforcing, you're building some new information, you're building some new knowledge, you're continuing to program your subconscious mind. And we think we're becoming, and you're reinforcing things that you've already adopted as your belief, as your reality. And we think as we grow from babyhood to adulthood, we're becoming versed in the ways of the world. But what we're really doing is we're binding down our soul, and we're shutting it off from the light through these bondages created by the ego and our subconscious mind that our ego has programmed, that is incongruent and inconsistent with unconditional love. And so then we carry on through our lifetime. And what we do is we repeat these patterns of thinking and feeling in every experience. We learn to navigate the world consciously. We learn that we might be quite judgmental. We might think somebody's not a very nice person, but we know we're in the business world and we have to treat them nicely, and we have to respect them to their face, because we're not going to get repeat work, or we're not going to be able to navigate through the corporate world that we live in. But in reality, it is what you say and do to people, for sure. But I can tell you that your thinking and your feeling that you have is what creates these consciousness blueprints that will return to you like events and like experiences. So if you're denigrating and judgmental and critical of others, you will start to get these rebound forms of these same things coming into you in months or years or later or years later. And these same experiences that are rebounding back to you to create lessons for you to wake up and to realize what you're doing for yourself. We are born and we think our individuality, our separateness from other people is our reality. Our body is our reality, that our these objects around us are solid, and that is our reality. And we let our externalities, how other people treat us, and what we view the world, drive our responses and our emotional reactions to life. And in reality, our soul is our reality. Where we come from is our reality. This individuality, this body, these objects is merely a tool for our souls to continue to go through this evolutionary process from lifetime to lifetime, that we're born into, varying genders, varying places of origin, varying colors of skin, different races, different traditions, different religions, that bring us these multitude of various events and experiences for our soul to learn the things that it wants to learn, to go through this evolutionary process to finally wake up and then start to cleanse itself lifetime after lifetime of all of these patterns of thinking and feeling and hurt, that it has developed and believes it's its reality. And some of it's so buried in our subconscious we don't even know about it. But as you go through this process, you start to cleanse these things and you start to view the world in a different way. You start to come to understand that we live in this state of duality, that our soul is our reality, and this external stuff and this separation from other people is merely this tool to enable our souls to learn these lessons. So you start to have conscious responses now from your soul's perspective versus your ego's perspective. And so another way to look at this is, our soul is like a method actor. So a method actor, we know this, that an actor that's going to work in a period piece, and they adopt this method acting, they will, as an example, they'll dress like that period piece. They'll eat like what's in that period piece. They'll take on the speech forms and the mannerisms of that character in that period piece, and they'll practice that for weeks or months before they get on set. They get on set, the director calls action. They've been practicing this character, and so they get right into form and they do the scene. The director calls cut. They come out of that back to their human selves, back to their actor self. They high five each other and go, "Wow, you did such a great job. I thought I was, really there in that period piece." And so the actors came back to their human selves from this character, their human selves. But because as we're growing from babyhood to adulthood, we start to take on this form of ego and believe that these objects around us are solid, and believe our body is this and we're individuality from other people. Then we get in, that's our character now. Our ego is taken on this character form and believes all of this stuff is our reality. And in truth, it isn't. uh you know the divine is unity of consciousness, and every soul is a fragment of divine consciousness that's come here to learn these things which are contrary to unconditional love, and have these experiences to take back to this aspect of the divine, which its birthright is unconditional love. And it would have no concept of what these things are that we consider to be negative, these negative experiences in this individuality, this whole earthly body that we experience. And so, this is a tool for our souls to bring this richness of these contrary and incongruent aspects of unconditional love back to the divine, to create this richness in the whole, in the divine, this knowledge and this feeling experience of things which are inconsistent with unconditional love. In reality, everything is love. Everything is just a a process for you to learn, for your soul to learn these things as we go through this evolutionary process of the soul. I don't know if that answered your question.
Uh, uh, actually, that was a thorough answer, and I'm quite sure that the artist will probably have to go through uh, this segment a couple of more times to, actually get the gist of what you're saying because uh, it's a lot of information
There
and
is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's a lot of information. I think it's going to take some time for people to, process everything that you're saying. So they'll probably have to go through this broadcast a couple of times before they actually, get it. That's how we know that we are, having a great guest with a wealth of knowledge. People was like, I kind of miss what this person was saying. So I have to go back, I had to rewind or do whatever so that I can really get the concept, of what you're saying. But I believe that, for example, if, they was to, buy your book, then they would have, everything in written form and they can go back and read it, whatever they want, just like they'll be able to go back to this podcast and listen to everything that you have to say.
Yeah, so so one thing I just want to say, so some of the things I'm talking about today are not in the book, but if you follow the 7 steps, you will begin to understand these things and they will happen slowly. So how I describe it today is because I have been on this journey for 4 years now. And I've been trying to put it in other words to give people something that, is kind of tangible and concrete for them so they can have an understanding of it. But I can tell you that if you follow the 7 steps and you stick with it, you will experience this stuff when it's right for you to experience it. And when you get to this point of you understand that you live in this state of duality and your soul is your reality and your ego is just this tool, you look at life entirely differently and you look at other people and you can have, I'm not a super emotional person, but I can feel compassion for people about, how they're behaving that are going to create these experiences in their life that they are not going to like. And if they're open, I, can give them counsel. But if they're not open to it, I don't, it's not my purview to push my beliefs onto anybody. And so people that are curious and open, I will talk to them and I'll share stuff with them in the hopes that they embark on this journey. Because I can tell you, like personal experience, I can tell you that this is the most beautiful and amazing journey. And I look at creation now, like I wouldn't even talk this way 5 years ago, but I look at what creation is now and the intelligent design and the beauty of this process that we're going through to gain this knowledge. It is a real joy. And it's just no matter what's going on, I can see the intelligence and the design in it. And even though it might seem quite negative, it's just incredible. And I can't even really describe it. It's just I look at life so differently than I did before. And I'm not concerned about anything. And I'm certainly not afraid of death. I used to be afraid of death, afraid of dying. I have no fear of dying. We're going to go back to the most wonderful, beautiful, perfect, loving state that you could ever imagine. Death is
Oh,
not to be afraid of. Death is just a metamorphosis. It's a, shedding of this flesh body to go back to who you really are. You're this new butterfly of unconditional love.
We are running out of time, so we're gonna have to wrap this up here. Now how is a someone able to get a hold of you if they want to talk to you or they want to purchase your book? How do they contact you?
Yeah, you bet. So first off, book is available wherever books are sold, Amazon or you know, in bookstores or Amazon, and it's available globally. If you go to ahigherroad.com, you will be taken to my author's website. And there's email there that you can connect with me, or you can learn about the book, or kind of my journey, so to speak. Um, and the book is called A Higher Road: Cleanse Your Consciousness to Transcend the Ego and Ascend Spiritually, a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. And it's by D. Neil Elliott, and Elliot is Elliott. And again, ahigherroad.com.
And last but not least, as with all of our guests, we invite you to present to the audience the last word, and it
Oh,
could be anything.
yeah, the last word is, um, again, no matter where you are, back streets of a slum or living in a mansion, if you are unhappy with any aspect of your life and you would like to come into this state of inner peace and joy and love and security, you need to understand that at everything that you are seeking is inside of you. You just have to know how to unlock it. You just need to get the keys. You need to get a process to unlock it and let it come forth. And I can tell you, it will transform your world.
Well, Neil, I want to thank you for being part of the show today. Um, certainly is a wealth of knowledge that I'm sure is going to help someone, uh, whatever you're going through, the struggles of life, the challenges that you may have. I'm sure that someone out there will find this information to be helpful. So thank you so much for being part of the show, and I wish you the best of success in your journey and keep on pushing.
Thank you so much, and all the best to both you and your family and all your listeners.
Thank you. And that will conclude this segment of the Author Showcase. My name is Keith Williams. I am your host. And our next podcast will be 2 weeks from today. We will not have a segment on next Saturday due to the Thanksgiving holiday. So we kind of taking a break, spend some time with our families. But we will be back with you 2 weeks from today. So until then, have a great evening.